So this week, the Nepal earthquake happened. It's a terrible disaster, a few thousand dead already. We're going to be recovering from this earthquake for quite a long time. As a structural seismologist, my interest is not so much in the earthquakes themselves, but in what the earthquakes tell us about the Earth. However, in this video, I kind of want to go over some of the early science that we've gotten out of this event already, what it tells us about why this earthquake was so bad, and end by talking a little bit about what you can do yourself in response to this earthquake and to prepare for future natural disasters. Much of what I'm going to be showing you comes from this IRIS Special Events page. These pages are made in rapid response to societally relevant earthquakes, and I highly recommend them to those who are curious. This style of video has become rather iconic since the US Array began nearly a decade ago. The original movies were made by Chuck Ammon and simply show you the ground motion recorded in the US as waves travel through following an earthquake. Colors indicate up or down motion, and the little sticks give you the horizontal motion. The wiggles at the bottom show you the ground motion versus time for one specific reference station near the center of the network. Near the end of the movie, we see phase R2, which is seismic waves traveling the long way around the Earth. These plots are called record sections. They show you the ground motion at several stations sorted by distance. You can clearly see aligning phases which are fit with the 1D model of seismic wave propagation. We can also use this information to determine local seismic velocity structure via relative arrival times across the network, for example, the stations throughout Alaska. I've downloaded the P-Wave data and computed receiver functions for Alaska and done a little processing on them with a MATLAB code I've been working on called FuncLab. This image shows you the P to S converted wave energy for about 120 Alaskan stations sorted by distance from Nepal. This reflects structural heterogeneity under Alaska to about 200 kilometers depth. This map shows you the estimated crustal thickness where we have stations. It's not great, but is showing some interesting variation already. However, to be more sure of the observations, we usually use hundreds or even thousands of earthquakes. In FuncLab, I've built a couple new features I want to highlight. I wrote a new application for very simple and intuitive common conversion point stacking. This is a method of making a 3D view of a region with receiver functions. In order to actually view these models, I built a new add-on called Visualizer, which allows you to load a 3D model and slice it to make 2D images. The bottom image is a slice through a common conversion point model, but for this image I plotted just the hit count, or where the rays from the earthquake hit my model. This second view shows you now the amplitude of the common conversion point stack along the same profile. You notice a yellow streak near the top, which is the MOHO, and then two deeper yellow streaks at about 410 and 670 kilometers, which are the mantle transition zone. We can use satellite-based geodetic methods to look at the change in the land surface due to the earthquake. This rainbow-colored plot is not intuitive to look at, but the idea is that each time the color pattern repeats represents some set amount of offset. So the shorter wavelength the rainbow pattern, the more surface deformation is observed. If we want to study the earthquake itself, we have other means of looking at it. This image is from Lingsen Meng and shows the peak slip colored by time since the origin. You can see in this simple image the rupture goes from the hypocenter in the west, nearly straight east towards Kathmandu. We can see this another way with the back projection analysis from the Australian network. Here you see the slip playing out as a function of time, clearly moving from the hypocenter towards Kathmandu. This is one of the main reasons the shaking was so devastating. The slip went right for the population center, and the energy release continued towards Mount Everest. These next images come from an IRIS Teachable Moment presentation available from the Special Events page. These are provided by IRIS E&O and the University of Portland. They are useful presentations for better understanding a region and what we know about its earthquake potential. Another factor here is what the cities of the area are built on. Because it's such a mountainous terrain, the main population centers are built on lacustrine sediments, which means they are loose sediments laid down by a lake. What happens is that when seismic energy propagates into these sediments, they amplify the shaking. Furthermore, when the energy tries to leave the basin, it hits the hard rock walls and bounces back into the basin. In many ways, this earthquake is analogous to the devastating earthquake in Haiti. They are both shallow earthquakes with slip directed towards a city center that does not have the resources to build earthquake-resistant housing and infrastructure. We have the technology to save these lives, but if you're a city planner and have to choose between improved water sanitation facilities, which will improve hundreds of lives now, versus improved earthquake codes, which might pay out in 100 years, it's generally an easy decision where to spend your limited resources. So as we work on reducing global poverty and overall world suck, these types of disasters will be mitigated. So every time there's a disaster like this, there's an amazing outpouring of the human spirit, sending everything we can to those areas hardest hit by these disasters and try and help out. Now, the best thing that we can do as individuals who are not trained aid workers or intimately familiar with the area is to send money to those who are. And the value of this is to it helps send supplies there, it helps with the rescue efforts, and most importantly, it helps prepare for the next big disaster. So it may seem a little shallow just sending cash, but it's actually the best thing that most of us can do. So meanwhile, it's important to think about what natural disasters you might have to face at home. So I was living in California for a long time. There it's always earthquakes, and the main idea is to have about a week's worth of food, water, medicine, and some warm clothing and blankets available while you wait for your services to be restored. Now, if you don't have earthquakes, say you live back in Michigan where I grew up, we have other disasters, we have floodings, we have blizzards. You know, it's important that you find out what natural disasters you have to be aware of and have a plan ready for when those disasters occur. So it's funny, but the old Boy Scout motto, be prepared, is actually the most important thing when it comes to natural disasters. So with that, thank you for watching, and DFTBA.